What's up, everyone? And I just got this crazy article that was shared. This is from the Kobeissi Letter, and it poses the question, what if AI is actually creating more jobs than it's replacing? And they used the data from US JOLTS that showed that job openings surged by a massive 731,000 jobs in April. And they say that markets were expecting no change, and this resulted in the largest beat in JOLTS history. As a result, available employment hit 7.6 million for the month, the highest since May 2024, and job openings in the professional and business services sectors surged by a massive 668,000 jobs. And it concludes with saying the labor market's bull case from AI is underpriced. And I also saw another article talking about how Bank of America is hiring 2,000 interns or an extra 2,000 interns, even in the face of AI layoffs and jobs going away. And I've actually made this case before that, hey, AI is probably going to eliminate some jobs. Like, it's going to happen. And part of that is because AI, the technology, actually replaces some of the work that is being done by humans in those roles. Like, it makes sense to automate certain things away. And also, I think it's also a spring cleaning excuse for a lot of these companies that might have overhired over the past 10 to 15 years with a lot of liquidity in the markets, a lot of growth happening. And so they were like, hey, we got to hire to keep up. And rather than being super particular about who they hire and how many people, they're like, we just got to hire. And so I think some of that's been going on. And so the companies and organizations are naturally looking at their workforce and being like, yeah, like we maybe hired 5, 10, maybe some is 20% too many people, right? Combined with some of the roles that can be automated away with AI. But the flip side, as like the Kobeissi Letter is saying, and real quick before I get to the flip side, I just launched my new book. It's called Send It Over Master It. And it's about AI, right? Because we're talking about AI, but it's about how non-technical people can win in the age of AI. You don't have to be a coder. You don't have to be a developer. You don't have to have a ton of experience because AI can unlock that experience for you. And the real key thing is that you need to have the mindset, and then you need to take what current experiences you have, life experiences, work experiences, and that judgment that you have, and add that to AI and make the shift. And if you do that, man, there's so many opportunities. It's incredible. And so click below, the link below, to get a copy of this. I'm trying to hit bestseller status. So if you get it today, it's on sale for 99 cents, just the Kindle version, or you can get the paperback version. I got a different cover on it. This is the proof version, but I switched up the cover. But grab a copy and you can learn about my perspective on AI and how you can win. Anyone can win if you make the choice. So back to the flip side of the thing is that what's happening, and this is part of like why I wrote this book and part of, I think, the opportunity, companies need people that understand AI and that are working through AI. And the real shift here, and this should be really exciting because not everyone, but a lot of people, they want to be a CEO or they want to get promoted in their company and they want to have more responsibility and ownership. And due to corporate hierarchies and structure like that, it's not always possible, or it didn't always seem feasible. And even just limitations on like what your knowledge is, what your experience is, and what even like money you have to build and deploy, whether it's your own business or something else, right? A lot of people get stuck in that worker role, thinking that, okay, just the example is like a data entry person, right? And so you can take the concept and apply it and see how this applies to your role, where basically you're a button pusher, right? Or you just have to enter stuff on a spreadsheet. And for a lot of jobs and roles and stuff like that, that can be actually very, very important. Right? So I'm not saying it's not significant or important, but the process is repeatable. And if it's repeatable, it can be automated away, especially if it's repeatable and it's easy to learn and teach. Doesn't mean that the person doing it isn't valuable, but the execution of that task is what AI is taking away because it is automatable. But the reality is not everything is automatable, right? Not everything is. And so if you're in one of those roles, think about how you can become the mini CEO, right? So you're transitioning from an employee mindset to a CEO mindset. And the way this happens is once you start working through AI, right? You now can have employees, but they're AI agents and AI workflows that are going out, that are doing research, that are gathering intelligence, that are synthesizing data, that are putting together reports, spreadsheets, documents, entering data, checking your data, all this kind of stuff. So you're not tasked with the execution. You just have to come up with the idea and be able to communicate it to the AI, right? To give it that direction, and then you harness the results. And what this should do, one, is it completely changes your mindset and perspective on what your work is and how you operate, right? And that's actually what happens when you move up in the workforce, right? You go from, like, when I was doing consulting, I was an analyst. So I was doing the grunt work. I was scraping databases. I was putting together spreadsheets. I was getting slide decks. I was doing market research, all this kind of stuff. And the manager, the guy who's getting paid more than me, right? He's managing a team of like 5 agents across a segment of the project. And the VP owned the whole project. He was managing project teams, right? But they get paid the most, right? And their decisions from the top down drive the value beyond the cost of the teams that they were controlling, okay? And so that's what happens when you move up. You naturally start doing less in the business or in the project work and start working on the project and on the business. And now with AI, it enables you, no matter what your job is, right, for the most part, especially when companies start going more AI native, to have your own mini team, so you're kind of operating like a CEO. And the value lever there is your judgment, right? It's deciding, just because you can work and build anything, right, it doesn't mean that you should. It's deciding what to work on, when to work on it, right? And in what direction to take it. So that's really cool. That's curation. And so if you're able to tap into that, and I think everyone can do that, and I think it's actually a lot easier than people think. It's a lot easier to judge like the quality of a artist's performance or an athlete's performance, even if you don't have the skills, right? You can watch and be like, okay, I know what's good and what's not good. It's a little bit easier to do that, which is great, because now you can apply that to your work or your job, or think about how you can translate those skills. So that's that shift to make. And I think what's happening is companies are recognizing this, and they're also realizing that they need that human element still, right? But they don't need the humans to be basically glorified computers or glorified robots. They need that human energy, that human spark, that human X factor. And they have to hire people that have that. They want to keep the people around that have that take initiative, that learn, that want to implement tools to increase the amount of value they're able to produce in their work. And so I think that's where a lot of these jobs are coming from, and will come from, that companies need to have in place. And I also think about it like this, and so I want you to think about it like this as well, is a person working there's like levels of people working with AI, okay? And I see AI as an enhancer, right? It just enhances what you can do. Either the pace at which you could do something. So say it's building a slide deck or a spreadsheet. With AI, you can build it faster, even if the quality remains the same. Okay, that's great, because then if you can build it faster, you can get more done, right? And so there's always things to do on your to-do list, so you get more done on your to-do list, and then you have more work to show your boss, and you stand out better, right? That's the difference between like a high-quality employee, a middle-tier employee, and a low-quality employee, is that the high-quality ones, or the higher-tier ones, the ones that get promoted and move up in the organization, they're able to get more done with the same amount of time, okay? And then there's also the other element, we haven't talked about it, is you can add the increase in quality, right? So take that same spreadsheet, and let's say AI, and I'm using these as examples because they're simple to think about. Obviously, you can take this and apply this to your individual situation, but take that spreadsheet and, okay, let's say you do it in an hour when it used to take you 5 hours. Now, instead of like you did 5 hours of work and then you had to submit the project because your boss is like, I need the spreadsheet on my desk or the PowerPoint on my desk by the end of the day. Now you like have half the day, 4 more hours, because it took you 5 to do it originally. AI, it took you 1 to ask the questions. Okay, is this thorough enough? Is this formatted correctly? How can I polish this thing up? And so you could spend an hour or two, right? This is just like the simplistic approach of how you can increase your value there. An hour or two, making it even better, okay? And then you still have a couple hours to spare to do other tasks, to do other things, or whatnot, okay? So you see how this can add up, right? So you turn in a project in less time for higher quality. Absolutely fantastic. And so these companies, they are looking for those people. Now, because AI is an enhancer, right? there are limitations to how much it can enhance any one individual in a workforce or in an org charts role. Okay, a lot of companies, they don't know how much it will actually increase the productivity, but there is an upper limit on that. Okay, whatever that is, and eventually, right, over the next 6 to 12 to 18 months, even right now, companies probably have hypotheses or case studies on what the productivity increase is by someone that's working effectively through these tools. They have ideas. They don't have necessarily full picture concrete data because these things are evolving so fast. It's new, it's novel. We don't have enough data there, but there's an upper limit for like how much output you can increase by using these tools. And it's going to settle around a certain number. The good news is once that happens, companies will be like, okay, how can we take our current people, AI-minded people, and get them to hit that benchmark? Say it's a 50% increase in productivity versus not AI person doing the same role, whatever it is, right? Okay, say they max out at 50%, and there's going to be some that are at 70, some that are at 40, right? But there's going to be a range. And now what the company has to think about, and these are where some of these jobs are going to get created. They're like, okay, we have a 100-person team. We've maxed them all out. They're all at 50% increase in productivity due to the AI. Fantastic. How do we still grow? Well, the way you grow, right, is hiring more people so you can stack that on, and that new person gets up to 50% more productivity increase, right? And now the overall productivity of the organization or the company grows, right? And they need people. And by doing this and thinking about this and looking into it, they'll recognize there's areas of their business that they were neglecting before or weren't paying attention because it wasn't economically feasible. They didn't have the time. The people didn't have the expertise. Now they can take a person, they can train them to focus their judgment, their curation, their experience on those areas. And sometimes for companies, they may take someone with experience that they never thought. Like take, for example, a construction company, right? This is just it. And they may be like, okay, we want to hire a physics major, right? Someone who knows physics. And in the past, like, we're not going to hire a physics major, right? It doesn't make sense. We can't see how it apply. But now they're like, we actually want to hire a physics major, someone with that, that view of the world on how it works from that perspective. And we want to have them analyze our construction projects through the lens of AI to see how we can refine, improve, optimize, or whatnot. So a whole new role got created with a whole new experience set that didn't exist before because it just wasn't viable or feasible for that company or industry. So I think we're going to see a ton of that going forward. But the catch is that you have to be the person that can work in the new AI economy, right? You have to, in the new AI systems, you have to lean in to your experiences and your judgment, the human things, right? Not the machine things, the human things that you have and possess that are unique to you based upon your unique life experience, your work experience, all that kind of stuff, and see how you can amplify and leverage those things with AI for any particular company, niche, or vertical. Right? That's my perspective on this. And I think for myself, right, it's given me an optimistic perspective because, rather than thinking AI is going to replace everyone, and this is from someone who, wrote a book on it and works through AI with my company every single day, AI doesn't have a soul. It doesn't know things. It does things, right? It can do things really well. It can do certain things way better than me. But it doesn't have my judgment. It doesn't have my experience. It doesn't have my knowledge of things. And even though I try to communicate that with it and take the time to build the automations and the skills and workflows and all that kind of stuff, it still misses the mark consistently. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just needs my guidance still, right? And I think it's going to need that for a while until, hey, if AGI happens and we reach this massive singularity, all bets are off. I'm only talking about the next, 6 to 12, 18 to 36 months here, that of time frame where we're having this massive adoption phase where there's chaos, where there's uncertainty, where there's all this kind of stuff, right? I'm talking about that, where you have this edge. Beyond that, I don't know, right? Who knows, right? This technology may grow so fast and so exponentially beyond anything we thought possible, right? But that's still it's a hypothetical thing in the future, right? It's theoretical, okay? We're talking about, hey, what's practical? What can we think about and do and implement and control now? And where are the value levers? And so if you're looking at this and you felt disheartened and you felt bummed out about this stuff, there's certain things we can change and there's certain things we can't change. best to focus on the things that you can change. And then also, it's great seeing some of these CEOs and companies come out and saying, hey, maybe the job apocalypse that we thought was going to come from AI, right, isn't going to look as bad as we thought, because yes, there will be jobs that are lost, and that does suck, right? But that is kind of just a thing that happens with technological growth and innovation, right? But there's going to be new jobs and opportunities that pop up. And many of those people that are displaced by that first wave of jobs that are becoming outdated because of AI, right? Many of those people can fill those new roles. And in fact, and I think, again, it comes down to your choice on that. Do you want to just stay stagnant? Do you want to stay and just lean into what you've always done in the past in this new environment? Hey, if you think it's going to work, go for it. But if not, right, it's like I made the example in my book, and by the way, you can get this below, 99 cents. It helps me. You get the Kindle. You can also buy the paperback version of this. But I made the example of the accountant who's like, I hate AI. I don't like what they're doing with data centers. I don't like the CEOs. I don't like the technology, and so I'm not going to use it. Okay, but they choose to stay in the accounting field. Well, the issue there is accounting is a field that can be dramatically enhanced by AI. And so they may choose not to use it, but their competitors are going to choose to use it. The same version of themselves that runs another accounting firm or whatnot is going to choose to use AI. And the reality of that is that person who chooses to use it is probably going to be able to do more work, better work in less time. They're going to be able to take on more clients. They're going to get better results, right? They're going to have better insights or faster insights into the market over the version of themselves that chooses not to use it. And so in that situation, if you want to stay in that field, you would have to carve out a specific, unique, high value niche there, or you just have to accept that, hey, in order to really stay competitive and compete in this field, I'm going to have to adopt these tools, right? That's the logical choice, right? Because if they stay stuck, they're going to get outcompeted. Versus the person, and I totally support this, right? If you're like, hey, I hate AI, I don't want anything to do with it, right? I'm going to move to Wyoming and become a fly fishing guide and a hunting guide and just not worry about computers and this stuff anymore. That's great, right? Because that's actually a smart, logical, consistent decision, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to move to a field, right, where I can focus, where I can have enjoyment, where I can still have my values that isn't going to be impacted by AI. That's a strategic decision that's in alignment with like your value perspectives. It makes sense. Maybe you make less money, right, than working your accountant job. Maybe you make more. Shoot, you can make good money doing that kind of stuff, especially with social media and all that kind of stuff, right? But you're not going to be outcompeted by a fly fishing guide necessarily using AI, right? The leverage and the edge there isn't quite the same. And so you're not putting yourself at a disadvantage in those situations. And so I could go on that all day. I have a lot more of that in this book, but I'm optimistic. I'm super excited to launch this. I'm super excited to get this in your hands, especially if you're skeptical, especially if you're skeptical about AI and what it's going to do. I encourage you to read this book and come to your own conclusion based upon the things I talk about in this, because ultimately, like, I want each and every single one of you watching this to find ways to live your life on your terms better than it was before, to level up, to get more enjoyment, right, to make more money, right? That's my goal for you. So that is it for this video. Click the link below to get access to that book and subscribe and follow along for more. Peace.